Hello, very good day to you. Welcome to your latest Met Office 10-day trend. I will be going through the weather we can expect as we go through the rest of 2023, but first I thought I'd take a quick glimpse at what we can expect on Christmas Day. At the moment it does look like low pressure perhaps towards the northeast of the UK, bringing something showery, possibly wintry, but also quite windy here. Elsewhere, and apart from this frontal system which should have cleared away towards the south, it's actually looking largely dry for Christmas Day. I'll have more details on that shortly. First, let's get through the rest of this week. And at the moment, through Wednesday evening into Thursday, we are heavily under the influence of a deep area of low pressure towards the north of the UK and an exceptionally high area of high pressure out in the Atlantic. And it's this huge contrast in our pressure, this huge pressure gradient that is leading to some very strong winds. Those strong winds are really going to pick up as we go through Wednesday evening and into Thursday. We're likely to see gusts in excess of 60, possibly up to 80 miles per hour in exposed spots, which is why we do have a warning in force. It's worth bearing in mind this feature has been named by the Danish Met Service Storm Pia because it is in Denmark where we're going to see the strongest winds. Nonetheless, we are likely to see some impacts on the roads. A lot of people travelling at this time of year, so do take care if you are heading on the roads or travelling in any way, because it is going to be a very windy day. Across the bulk of the UK it will be windy, but especially in the north where we do have a warning in force. Looking at the details for Thursday then, and it's going to be a showery picture for many of us. Some of those showers could be quite heavy, some hail, perhaps even some thunder mixed in, and a little bit of wintriness, some sleet or snow over the higher ground of Scotland, and a cold feel to things, or a chilly feel across northern parts. Temperatures dropping as we go through the day, highs around 8 to 6 Celsius across parts of Scotland. Meanwhile, further south it's going to be a fair bit milder, could see highs around 13 or 14 Celsius here. But it's those winds that are really going to be most impactful, and they will make it feel colder, especially across northern parts. Further showers then piling in on those strong northwesterly winds as we go through Thursday evening. Still some further wintriness across parts of Scotland in particular, some clearer skies towards eastern parts perhaps, but turning cloudier through the night, and with the winds and the cloud it's not going to be a particularly chilly night for most of us as we go into Friday. That's because we have generally mild air across the bulk of the UK as we head into Friday. A different story across the far northeast. Here we have something a little bit colder, which is why temperatures will be quite a bit lower here, but otherwise it is going to be a fairly mild start. As we go through the day itself then, quite a bit of cloud for most of us and outbreaks of rain, particularly towards the west. Some drizzly rain at times, but could turn a little bit heavy. Notice in the southwest we're likely to see something a little bit drier and perhaps even brighter for a time as we go into the afternoon. And temperatures in the south near normal, highs around 12, possibly 13 Celsius, but markedly lower than this across the north because of that colder air that I highlighted. Temperatures really suppressed here, and with some precipitation around, we are likely to see some sleet or snow. We could even see some snow accumulations building up as we go through Friday, with more persistent rain then pushing its way in later on in the day. If we look at snow accumulations then as we go through Friday, and well, we could see something building up, perhaps a few centimetres quite likely for a few places across parts of Scotland. These charts here show the probability of us seeing more than 5 centimetres on the left-hand side and more than 10 centimetres of lying snow as we go through Friday. So a reasonable chance, the reds showing a very high probability of some decent lying snow across parts of northern Scotland on Friday, and a slightly less chance of seeing greater than 10 centimetres, but it's non-zero nonetheless. And notice also for Shetland, here we have a chance of some significant snow perhaps, and so when you factor in those strong winds, which won't be as strong on Friday as they will be as on Thursday, but it is going to be a windy day for many of us, we could have some blizzard conditions, particularly across parts of Shetland. So some difficult conditions, like I said, lots of us heading out on the roads at this time of year. The other thing then to look at as we go through Friday is the fact that there could be some lightning around. Now, this chart behind me is a tephigram. I don't really have the time now to go through exactly what this shows, but it is a tephigram for Shetland, and what it is showing is this area shows where there's the energy, the instability, and it's that instability that could lead to some big clouds, some cumulonimbus clouds developing, leading to the risk of some thunder and lightning. As a result, along with those strong winds and the snow, we could have some thunder mixed in across parts of Shetland in particular, so we could have some thunder snow on Friday. But let's look further ahead and let's look towards the weekend. And what we wake up to on Saturday morning, well, it's likely to be a pretty wet picture across northern parts, perhaps some snow mixed in with that for a time, but then all that rain pushes its way south and eastwards as we go through Christmas Eve. So I think many of us in the last few days before Christmas will see some outbreaks of rain. They could be a bit heavy at times, could cause some problems. Again, like I said, lots of people travelling at this time of year. But it is going to be a mild weekend for many of us. Notice there's some cold air still fringing towards far northern parts perhaps, so never too far away, but for many of us it's a mild picture. So although yes, it is going to be wet and windy at times for many of us as we go through the 23rd and the 24th, it is also going to be pretty mild, especially towards the south. But those rainfall totals then that I mentioned, like I said, we could have some problems because of the heavy rain. So notice across, I should mention, this chart shows us our 24-hour rainfall accumulations through Saturday, the 23rd of December. And on the left-hand side, we have the Met Office model. In the middle, we have the ECMWF, so the European Centre for Medium-Range Weather Forecasting model. And on the right-hand side, we have GFS, the American model. And what they're all showing, they're in fairly good agreement, is that we are likely to see some significant heavy rain across western parts of Scotland in particular. Elsewhere there will be some rain around, for most at least. The EC highlighting that across the southeast on Saturday it's largely dry. But yes, some significant rain, particularly across western parts of Scotland. I think 50 to 70 millimetres seems quite likely. Could be a little bit more, perhaps worst case scenario around 90 to 100 millimetres of rain is possible. So it does look like it's going to be a pretty wet day there. Also some further heavy rain to come as we go through Christmas Eve, particularly across western parts of northwestern parts of Wales. Here we could see perhaps 40 to 60 millimetres, maybe even a little bit more than that. So some significant rainfall here, also northwest England, and some further heavy rain for western Scotland, where we will already have had a pretty wet day on the 23rd. So that again could cause some further issues. Notice ECMWF is largely in agreement with the Met Office model. The GFS one, slightly different. The resolution for this model in the UK is quite low. So not the best steer here. I think it's better to look at these two models, but I wanted to show you them nonetheless. Either way, it does look like it is going to be a pretty wet picture in the run-up to Christmas Day at least. However, for Christmas Day itself then, and I already showed you a glimpse at this, I think the main thing to take away is that for most of us, it's looking largely dry. There is this frontal system that could still be lingering across far southern parts, so we may wake up to a little bit of drizzly rain first thing, but for most, we are going to be under the influence of this weak ridge of high pressure, so a largely dry picture. However, notice towards the north-northeast of the UK, low pressure in control here, so it's going to be quite windy, blustery, and we are likely to see some showers mixed in with this, and with some colder air across northern parts of the UK, those showers could well be wintry. So let's look at the details for Christmas Day, and this chart breaks it down quite nicely. I think in terms of if you're looking for a white Christmas, and there's a reasonable chance that for the UK it will technically be one. Remember the Met Office definition, we only need one flake of snow recorded officially somewhere in the UK, and with the chance of some wintry showers, particularly across northern parts, I think it is quite likely. So the greatest chance of seeing some snow on Christmas Day will be across parts of northern central Scotland, particularly the higher ground. We could see maybe 4 to 8 centimetres over the higher ground if we see those wintry showers really kicking off and that colder air does plunge its way a little bit further southwards. Meanwhile, slightly further south into more central southern parts of Scotland and perhaps the far north of England, you couldn't rule out some wintry showers, but it's less likely, and it's really only going to be over the higher ground that we'd see any sleet or snow. And then for the bulk of the UK, like I said, we may wake up to a little bit of drizzly rain perhaps, especially towards the south, but for most of us it at the moment is looking largely dry, albeit perhaps windy rather than white. There is some uncertainty in the details for the forecast for Christmas Day. Now this chart shows the probability of where any fronts will be lying, and I've circled the UK and that front that I mentioned likely to be lying across southern parts of the UK, because you can see the deeper the greens show that it's most likely to be to the south of the UK by the time we get to Christmas Day, but it's no guarantee. Some models do want it that little bit further north, and so as a result we could see some drizzly rain lingering across southern parts through a big chunk of the day, but most likely it is going to be generally dry. Now that's it for Christmas Day, but let's look ahead to the last few days of 2023 and the week commencing on the 25th, well, it looks like we're going to see a continuation of the changeable, unsettled weather that we've seen recently. So this ECMWF chart shows pressure anomaly, so the difference in pressure compared to average, and the greeny blue showing that we're more likely to see lower pressure than average, particularly towards the northeast of the UK. Low pressure means it's likely to be quite unsettled at times, with some further spells of long rain or showers and some windy conditions too, with something a little bit higher towards the southwest. As well as that, it's worth looking at our temperatures, and these meteogram plots for our capital cities show a couple of interesting things. If we start off looking at our more southern capitals, so Cardiff and London, and you can see temperatures at the moment a little bit above average for the time of year, and they stay above average as we go through the Christmas period and beyond. Just a couple of degrees above average, but likely to be on the milder side here. However, further north for Belfast and more so Edinburgh, you can see, yes, it's on the milder side for the time being, but then they drop down as we go through Christmas Day and through next week, and so we're likely to see things turning chillier across northern parts as we go through next week. It's worth bearing in mind that confidence isn't particularly high. Notice this forecast confidence index, which shows how strong the confidence is compared to average. Really, it takes a plunge once we get to the 25th. So confidence is around average as we go through the next few days, but from Christmas Day onwards, confidence really drops. And so I think, well, what I just went through in terms of the general trend, it looks reasonably likely, but we really don't have any great handle of the detail on what we can expect through that final week of 2023. That being said, I think with low pressure is generally going to be in charge. So more unsettled, more changeable weather to come. There'll be strong winds at times, some longer spells of rain, some showers, though perhaps not as unsettled as it has been recently. I don't think it'll be quite as mobile a picture, and so any low pressure systems that do come through shouldn't move through quite as quickly as they have done through recent days, particularly Storm Pier, for example, and so the impact should be less as well, but it is looking like it will be generally unsettled. It is going to be mostly mild, I believe, for most of us, but not necessarily all of us. Like I showed you, there's the chance of something a little bit colder towards the north of the UK, and so some cold air never too far away, and so slight differences could lead to some of that colder air pushing its way a little bit further southwards. So it is worth staying up to date, of course, and we will keep you updated across our YouTube channel, across our social media, across our app and our website through the festive period and into next year. So do make sure you stay up to date, particularly if you're taking to the roads or travelling through the festive period. Otherwise, I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.